20 to 8 Thursday morning, an Oxford author has published a new book telling the shocking true story of Christopher Alder, who died on the floor of a police station back in 1998. Dan Glazebrook is the author. He wrote the book with Christopher's sister Janet, and in it they claim police officers were promised they wouldn't be prosecuted over the death in custody of the black former paratrooper. Janet says writing about the family's fight for justice has been a cathartic process.
I think I've exhausted every avenue, every institution, as far as trying to fight for justice and get some kind of justice for Christopher and my family. And it has never happened. So I just felt that I needed to write everything down. He died in police custody, and I'd always said that I believe Christopher died because of the colour of his skin. It was just some of the revelations that came out, over the years. Like the monkey and chimpanzee noises, that officers were making. I'd seen on the video evidence of a girl that had gone into custody, and she'd cut a finger, and there was all rallying round her to get her a plaster, and we have to get you some medical attention, and then comparing it to the way that they treated Christopher, who was bleeding from his mouth, gasping for his life, laid with his trousers and box shorts down to his knees, more severe injuries. Just the comparison of treatment was shocking, absolutely shocking.
Cheers, tears and applause came from Christopher Alder's family and friends as the jury announced their verdict of unlawful killing.
The Independent Police Complaints Commission delivered a devastating verdict. They laid into the most serious neglect of duty, but the officers concerned maintain they did nothing wrong.
The time is therefore right for me publicly to apologise to Christopher Alder's family for our failure to treat Christopher with sufficient compassion and to the desired standard that night.
I really expected them to just sort all this out and that would be the end of it, but it just kept going on and on and on.
Now, an investigation has begun into how the body of a man who died in police custody and was supposed to have been buried in Hull more than a decade ago turned up in a mortuary in the city. It's understood that the body of a woman may have been buried instead of 37-year-old Christopher Alder.
I don't know, I've got through it myself. I just can't believe that something like this could happen. It's a frightening experience. I don't think anybody could really kind of imagine day in, day out, year in, year out, to be in that position and be so scared, but have so many questions as well that needed answered. I've had to kind of dig deep inside myself and question myself in lots of ways, as well as kind of trying to keep my sanity together. It's just been, it's been heart-wrenching. It's really been very, very, very traumatic.
Well, that's Janet, who will be in Oxford tonight with author Dan Glazebrook. I'll give you the details of that in just a moment. First, in a statement, the Crown Prosecution Service says this was a deeply tragic case and it recognises the pain felt by Mr Alder's loved ones. It says the CPS charged a number of police officers in connection with the death of Christopher Alder, but their trial in 2002 was stopped and the jury was directed to find them not guilty. The service says the thoughts remain with Mr Alder's family for the loss that they endured. I've been speaking to the Oxford author who wrote the book as well, Dan Glazebrook. He co-wrote the story with Janet, and he told me he first met her at a film screening.
It's a fantastic film. It's one of the most powerful documentaries I've ever seen. It's called Injustice, and it follows the struggles of several families in the same position as Janet. That is, that they've lost members of their family at the hands of the police. And it was due for a cinema release. And what happened was the Police Federation actually wrote to every cinema that was planning to show it and threatened to sue them for incitement to riot. So it was pulled from all the cinemas. So instead it toured around university campuses and community centres and so on, organised by community groups. And so I was a student, and our group, we organised to have a screening. And the director, Ken Farrow, came along, and he brought Janet along, whose brother Christopher had died just 2 years earlier. And that's where I met her. And subsequently, I interviewed her a few times over the years for different publications. And the last one that I did in 2015, that was following the discovery that her brother's body had actually been in a mortuary in Hull for 11 years following what they thought was his burial. So I interviewed about her about all of that and wrote it up, and she was very pleased with the piece. And she called me and said, "Look, I really want to get a book out about everything. Would you write it?" And I said, "Yeah." And it's been that 8 years later, we're finally here, and it's out. So,
and now you're going on this book tour. So Janet and yourself are both going to be talking about it at New Road Baptist Hall in Oxford. I wonder how easy or hard it is for her to talk about this again and again and again, or is it something that's just constantly on her mind anyway?
It can be tough. Yeah, it can be tough and draining. And obviously, we it's striking a balance because you want to expose what's gone on. You know, you want people to know the details of the horrific things that have been done to her brother and to her. She was illegally spied on and, consistently gaslighted and so on by the authorities. So you want to expose all of that. But yes, it's striking a balance because obviously we don't certainly want to get into a position where, the people's traumas can be kind of relived in the news industry for the purposes of entertainment. And we don't want to be going down that road. So it's about striking a balance really between exposing what's gone on without, unnecessarily just causing additional distress to Janet. But she's very experienced in these matters. She knows how to look after herself. And if people want the full details, it's all there in the book. So I'm always reassuring her she doesn't need to go over everything because the book's out now. Everything people need to know is in there. So, yeah, we hope to get the balance right.
That's Oxford author Dan Glazebrook, who'll be in the city tonight with Janet, Christopher Alder's sister. They're talking about the book at the New Road Baptist Church just by Bond Square from 6:30 this evening. But if you can't make that, their book, which is out now, is called Defiance, Racial Injustice, Police Brutality, A Sister's Fight for the Truth. It's BBC Radio Oxford, Thursday morning.